and offer some words of guidance for us this evening as we come together to discuss a very important kaupapa. Reira e mihi ana. Kei rama, kei raro, kei roto, kei wau. Kawa kei iri e nei kupu kōrero ki te tāu i o Raminui e tui o nei. Ia papa tuanu ki e takapa o ki nei. Hauni e, hui e.
Thank you very much, Dina. Can I just, by way of introduction, I'm Weston Kirton, Mayor of Ruapehu District Council, and we have the Deputy Mayor who is here at the doorway there. Vivian and David. Rabbit. We have John Luigi at the back there, Chair of the Community Board. Susie Redmayne, I see here, a candidate for the Ngāti National Party here. I'm not sure if there's any other candidate, but if there's so, welcome. It's a privilege to be chairing this meeting tonight, and it's a great turnout. Sorry about the delay getting the format together because we thought it would be a bigger audience, and there probably is a big audience online. Obviously, it's a bit of nerve, the fact that we're going ahead, or at least the proposal to put housing in your backyard. Just by way of information, we do have staff here today, and of course the Chief Executive will introduce himself shortly, but just a way of background, our council have, we've been working hard, I guess, to get to this point in partnership with Raynor and Ngāti Rangi to see that housing is in this area. But tonight's meeting has come about by the request from our elected members to front up to you as a community, to answer questions, to outline what the proposal is, and do our best to satisfy some of the questions that you have or may have. Can I just say, though, that we have a long history of consultation phases to this point, and before this elected council, there was a lot of work, as you know, getting the housing in this area. So this is just part of the overall picture or the project, but nevertheless, it's the important one. And so, as you know, that even today, there was a consultation phase whereby that barbecue at lunchtime today was an opportunity to meet one of the partners, Taumarunui, and the people that are associated with that, just to answer questions for those who may be interested in purchasing or at least being involved in the housing, and also allay some of the fears that we may have with them as well. So this is just an added value to that our elected members are quite adamant that we actually come tonight to answer, as elected members for good reason, to answer any questions from a political and elected position. So without further ado, perhaps I can introduce the Chief Executive, who may just give you an overlay of what the project entails, what the process is, what stage we're at with the process, and then open floor for you to ask questions. And just bear in mind that I've got to mix it up with questions from the floor, and also we'll see a hand come up, and there'll be a number of hands and numbered in order, and I'll be able to see, you probably see yourselves at some stage as to who and how many people will be wanting to ask questions. I anticipate it'll be at least an hour and a half tonight doing that. If we need to go over time, it's fine. But of course, with just the interest of time, we'll try and wrap it up in about an hour and a half time. Are there any questions about that? If not, I'll invite Chief Executive to give a bit of an overview. Thank you.
Sure. Look, welcome everyone. This is an amazing turnout, so thank you all for giving up your evening. I'm Clive Manley. This journey on housing started in about 2019, and I think because of COVID and everything else, it seems like a distant memory. But if you go back, 4 years ago, housing was the #1 topic right across the country. We weren't building enough, we weren't addressing the issues. So the council at the time said, look, we don't know what our role should be or could be, but we need to help some way in housing. Now, initially, we were looking right across the district, so we weren't focusing on Ohakune or Taumarunui or anywhere. It was everyone was saying there is a need for housing. So at the time, there was enough commercial investment housing going on. They were meeting the kind of the people who've got the money to buy houses. There was opportunities for them, and Ohakune was growing and the different places were growing. But what the feedback we were getting was the affordable housing there was a gap there. The mechanism wasn't there to do it from a commercial point of view, and the government wasn't necessarily providing it in our district. So what we looked at was 3 areas. One, that Housing New Zealand, as it was called then, maybe needed to address some of their issues. We also had a lot of requests from people who wanted to do affordable first time, buying houses for the first time, and affordable houses that they could move into. And we were also getting employers were saying, look, we're getting constrained. We can't grow because as soon as we try and bring people back or do it, they haven't got accommodation to stay in. So we had a strategy at the time, which I said it's about 3-4 years ago, which we consulted on. We had meetings in Ohakune, in the old, the Cozy Club and on things, but it wasn't specific to any site. It was addressing the need and what we should be doing on it. COVID came along, and that was when there was huge concern about our economy, employment. It's all like a distant memory now, all this sort of stuff. But we put in a bid to what they call was a CIP, or Crown Infrastructure Partners Fund, for a bid. And we had a whole host of them, and one of them was for housing for Ruapehu. We were partially successful in that we dashed for about 30-odd million, but we got about 7 million for it, which we were very grateful for. But the criteria was it had to be what they called shovel ready. And what council had done when it was looking at it is we're not a developer, we're not trying to compete with anyone, but what we do have is a bit of land in different places. So we said to government, our local share can be the land that we use if you provide the infrastructure and we find what they call a CHIP, or a community housing provider that builds properties, affordable properties. So we had this sort of in principle support. Shane Jones announced that he would support this district in housing, quite a few years ago. And then we went on what they call the due diligence of going through site by site of what was in our district to see what was shovel ready. And they were very strict that it had to be ready, for it on there. So we went through, we worked with iwi partners, we worked with different sort of agencies around. There's a thing called GETS, which is a kind of way you tender or you put an expression out for people to work with us, to say those CHIPs or community housing providers, will you come and work with us on it? So this was done. At the time, we didn't get a pickup. They said, no, this area is too remote, it's too hard away from the centres. So we were starting to stall, and CIP kind of said, look, we're not sure you've got a viable option here to do it. Fortunately for us, Kangaroa came along, and I think the big misconception of Kangaroa is Kangaroa doesn't just build social houses or public houses. It actually has been charged from government to get houses built everywhere for all types. So they were able to, so the Crown infrastructure money went to Kangaroa as the developer, but they required them to work with council and with Ngāti Rangi as the local iwi when we're looking at the Ohakune development. So at the moment across the districts, there is other initiatives that we're looking at, but this is the most advanced one. We haven't got anything that we can sort of announce in other areas, but there is discussions going on. So Tate Drive was bought by the old Ohakune Borough back in 1971, I think it was. It's freehold, it's zoned for housing. So it was an ideal site to be able to build some houses on. So we started to, Kangaroa started to look at development plans, looked at possibilities for it. And then a contract was signed. And I think this is where a lot of the confusions come in. Until we actually got a contract to provide the money, there wasn't going to be any development. And because it was government money, they wanted to announce the project, because it's not for us to announce it, because we couldn't do it alone. So that's why it's only in the last sort of month or two that it's suddenly come out into the fore that yes, there could be some development going on in Tate Drive. So where we are at the moment, we've put in a resource consent. It's a joint one from Kangaroo and Council. That will go through its assessment process. And because we're a party to it, that will be done by independent commissioners. It won't be council that decides, it will be done through it. So that process will carry through. Both council and Kangaroo have asked for that to be a publicly notified process. I think there's been so much interest in it. Let's everyone have a chance to be able to engage in that resource consent process. So there'll be plenty of opportunities. Those of you who want to get involved in the application, there'll be a whole process over the next few months to do it. We've been bombarded with a lot of questions that we cannot answer at this stage. We do not know how many one-bedroom houses, two-bedroom, three-bedroom, or whatever, because we're not at that stage. All we are at is a subdivision infrastructure stage. That's what the resource consent is for, with a kind of indicative layout. So all those questions about the types of houses, that will be worked out later on through it. What we have agreed, though, with the money, is that there would be 15 public housing. There would be 15 what we call the first home buyers. So anyone who wants to use that scheme that's available now, that's to do it. And there'll also be 14 affordable workers accommodation. So employers in the district will have the opportunity to be able to use those for their employers. So there is a rest of the site. This is only one part of that site that we're looking at the moment. There is absolutely no plans of continuing houses in the future, but what we're able to get from government is that the infrastructure to enable that to be developed is being put in now. So the subdivision plan shows the development of the whole site, but the only bit that's actually contracted, if you like, subject to the resource consent, is those first 44 lots. So just to stress, first of all, there's a real housing need that's in our district. Ohakune has a housing need as well, because there's plenty of people who, when we've got lovely snow at the mountain, the Manga there, which is fantastic, but that also absorbs a lot of the accommodation. So if you're a worker trying to get accommodation, it's not often available. So there's a real need for workers, family rental accommodation in Ohakune. Even though we've got like 40% of second homes in Ohakune, they're not normally available for the community on there. So look, tonight was more listening to you. I've given more out because just to respect for the amazing crowd that's coming here. We're interested in your views. We're getting mixed views coming back. Some are saying, look, this is overdue. There's huge overcrowding. We need help. Can you speed this up? And we've also got the comments back that this is just the wrong place. Is there a need, and should we be doing it? So we're interested in hearing your views tonight. There's a whole more information I can provide, but I don't want to just bombard you with facts. I'd rather hear from you what they are, and we'll respond to them. So unless you want me to cover anything else.
No, I think that's just a couple of points there, just picking up on what you've just said there, Clive, and I think it just needs to be said that the 15 public houses, which appears to be a huge problem for some people, just got to make quite clear that our understanding is that it's local people. So it's not encouraging or inviting people from the Rotoruas or South Auckland or anything like that. We've just got to put that out there. These figures that we're getting and the demand that we think is out there, or if we know is out there, are our local people. So it's local people.
Do you have on the current waiting list? That's the emergency housing waiting list. How many families? And I would
No. What was Pauline? Yeah, Pauline.
There are 12 on Raynor waiting list, but we have 36 on multiple housing waiting list.
Yeah, so that's throughout the district, is it?
No, we have 36 on in Ohakune, and there's 5 in Raynor on council social housing waiting list.
Yes.
And we also are well aware that there's very much a hidden problem with homelessness, crowding, and substandard conditions in this town.
That is people reluctant to officially put their name forward, is that what you're saying?
Yes, well,
Yeah.
we had one person today come up to us at our barbecue who desperately in need of emergency housing, and he was not on anybody's list, him and his 5 children. And that was just one person that came up to us today. We met others at the school yesterday who also were living in substandard housing and were desperate for housing. None of these people that we've been talking to are actually on anyone's list. So there's a big hidden problem in Ohakune.
The list is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Housing, why aren't they?
If I could-
If that's that different for housing. why aren't they-
There's no housing.
Can I-
There's no housing.
Go on, trade next.
Could I just point out that if you want to speak, please put your hand up and I'll be conscious of the ones online as well. So we've got.
Yeah, so there's 2 resource consents in place, it's like this one, clarification. And funding from CIP was approved in March this year. It took 4 months for council to actually come out and say anything or ask us if this, development was what we wanted. And I guess my question is, does the council think it's legal to sell a ratepayer asset without consultation on it?
So, first of all, timing wise we never have enough time to do all this. We never engage early. My preference would have been to have gone when this was first being talked about, but we had nothing to talk about. There was no layouts, there was no concepts to do at that time.
You had a layout in September last year drawn out. It's in the resource.
It wasn't approved though, it was only a suggestion at the time.
Council still discussed that with the ratepayers, the community, or you, or something.
Can I make a suggestion? Rather than us sort of talk at each other, I'll listen to the question
Try and get
and then
the
I'll
question.
respond and then we'll listen to another question. Otherwise, we'll end up just having 2 ways around it. So look, as far as the consultation starting early, of course, we should have started earlier. I'd have loved to have, gone when this first thing was being looked at. What we've got is what we've got. What we have done is said that the resource consent now will be we've asked for it to be a notified process. So we've still got, they're going on for another few more months, plenty of opportunity for people to engage in the process. That's the first thing. And your other question was what
Is it legal for council
Yeah,
to sell
yeah.
ratepayers?
We did consult on the model of using council land as our local share for housing, not Tate Drive. We own a lot of land, and when you test the significance, if we said we were going to sell all of our land, that might be significant, but one parcel of land does not trigger our significance policy.
Yeah, might want to read the policy now.
Yep, I'm well aware of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, did I get a question? Yes.
Lindsay, so we hear there are perhaps 2 issues, and thank you, here we've got social affordable housing for families in need. Nobody denies that. But I also hear a very commanding statement from you that there are business owner operators here who are committed to long-term sustainability of Ohakune.
Yeah.
How many of those are in the room genuinely whose businesses have not grown because of lack of housing?
2, 3.
Okay, and so.
Under the queue outside,
My business employs about 16 people in winter and we can't find chefs. So we own the Cypress tree.
And you
We
probably,
have literally had people not take jobs because they can't get in.
So my question is twofold. So nobody doubts that to build Ohakune even greater than what it was when I've been coming as a kid from home, we need long-term sustainable businesses. We need long-term investment here, but I'm not genuinely convinced it's from Kainga Ora, putting money into using our taxpayer and ratepayers' money into that development when there are numerous opportunities around here to accommodate people.
just to tidy up on the ratepayers are not paying for this as such. The land is the ratepayers. You're right on that respect.
We will for the long-term maintenance and care of those.
And there'll be a ratepayer too, by the way. There will be a ratepayer. But I'm conscious of one online.
Yes, excuse me, I have a question here from Fraser Jeffries. who is asking, why not use existing housing stock for public housing?
No, I was going to say.
I think that's an issue that has come up many times, and my understanding is because of the quality of the housing.
Yeah, I think this is a question, obviously, that when government was looking at how it could actually do things for housing, it wasn't prepared to repurpose existing housing. We need more housing units. But the principle, right, has always been that if you're going to expect government money in infrastructure, you had to be adding to the housing market. So you could have gone and bought a whole lot of houses, but all you're doing is taking that away from others who may have wanted it. So that was a principle of the funding. That wasn't a council decision. We had to add more units to be able to attract that funding.
Excuse me, but one thing Ohakune has is a lot of houses sitting empty. So if you're selling a house that's already empty, it's not taking it away from someone else. So I see that as a different scenario.
Yeah, but there was, so the other thing was council was not going to put ratepayer money in. So we do rely on partnership with others to do it. So it's not our choice how other people spend their money. They said they wanted to add units at a quality. That was the condition of take it or leave it. So that was not our decision. We do have a policy that says we should attract partnership to help our district. We don't want to burden our ratepayers any more than they are. So that's why we were in that position.
We have one question here and then we'll go online.
My question is the affordable housing thing. I think the trouble with a lot of the cost of affordable housing has been created by councils and government. I think that the standards that they're trying to push now are getting out of hand as such, adding a big extra cost. The houses that you were saying that have are not up to standard, you've just said substandard ones. Families grew up in those and they didn't all die or anything, you know, I mean, and now we're saying those are not acceptable for people who haven't got a house or live in truly substandard housing. So I think that there should be a bit of a rethink on the negative attitude towards buying or utilising existing stock just because you say it's not up to the current standards. I think the standards that were quite good enough for everybody to live in. We all grew up in those houses and we didn't die. The other question I have really is with the social housing one, the emergency housing thing, I've been told by an employer that they tried to employ somebody who's currently in emergency housing, but the person said, I'd love to take the job. The employer wanted to employ them, but they said, as soon as they get employed, they're out of the emergency housing. Is that true or not?
So first of all, we're not talking about emergency housing in Tate Drive. What we're talking about is public housing,
okay,
or first home buyers or affordable workers. Emergency housing is a totally different topic that's done by trust. We don't have any involvement on that at all.
So there will be no emergency housing in Tate Drive?
No, that's certainly not on the plan. Those of you who've seen the contract, you know, that's certainly not included. Yeah.
And I think my understanding is the worker accommodation will be supervised as well, under some form of management as well.
Could you explain what public housing is?
Yeah, what was that?
Yeah, public housing is what we used to call the old Housing New Zealand, where they've got rentals available for people if they meet a criteria. The terminology has changed, the standards have changed, the support around it is obviously changed as well. But just to comment on the standards discussion, although COVID took us away from caring about climate change and carbon, we do need to have a housing stock or an infrastructure in New Zealand that does consume less energy. So when we are building new houses, we should be conscious that we're taking as much cognizance of what they call passive approach, you know, having them in the right position, insulating, efficient heating things. A lot of our existing stock will struggle to meet sort of future carbon reduction standards. So the government's made the decision that in the future, we should be a lot more conscious of the amount of, carbon we can.
Except that we'll have to use about 10 times as many carbon credits to get up to the
There's a
extent.
quick question from our secretary online, please.
Yes, sorry, we've also got someone on Zoom joining us as well.
Yeah, welcome.
So the question very quickly from Mark Baker is, what existing housing stock does the council own houses?
So, Pauline? Yep.
We own, council owns, we've 96, I think, units. They're not all houses, most of them are flats. They are in, Taumarunui, Ohakune, and Ruapehu. Yeah, and they are a mix of bedsits, 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom flats. There is 1 3-bedroom house, and that used to be the doctor's house in Ruapehu.
Are they all occupied?
Oh, yes, and we've got a waiting list of 36 here. We've got a waiting list of 5 in Ruapehu, and I didn't check the Taumarunui waiting list, but it is very long up there, probably. It would be well into the double figures up there.
One question I think at the back there.
So this is more of a question. Ohakune is a unique and amazingly successful small community. First base for the rural base, way back it was of course a train junction, more recently a rural base, then it became a tourist base with the advent of the ski field, developed further with the advent of the bikeways, and now developing further with our magnificent Carrot Play Park, which is just a spectacular success throughout New Zealand and beyond. It's a very successful community. It's focused basically, the development is focused on tourism. Now, this community deserved to be consulted about the council putting its shoulder behind this project, and it hasn't been. And you've been good enough to really concede that. And we know it's been a rush, there's available monies, the appeal is there, but you've chosen the wrong place. Not everybody's view, obviously, but we deserved to be consulted and we haven't been. And we should not have to deal with this by way of a defend and resource consent application supported by the council. And that's what you're asking us to do. You're asking us to battle this thing when you, the council, are supporting a resource application that will have to be contested, expense and hassle and risk. Shouldn't happen. My request is that you should not proceed with the existing plan. You should go back to basics. You should cancel your contract and start again and consult this community properly and get a real insight into where we're going and where we what our wishes are as a majority.
Here. Best thing that's been said all night.
I don't disagree with, sorry, I'll just answer it and then I'll let you go.
We've heard enough from you, Clive. Sit down.
Bring me up, Scotty.
Thank you.
Sorry, what was that?
I was just wondering if people could introduce themselves to this.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good idea.
Crowd and we don't all know it.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, good point. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I hope a number of you here are aware of the Future Ohakune is a project that's been around for quite a few years now. And what we knew is Ohakune is a fantastic town. It's got huge potential. It is growing, but it's not necessarily growing.
And you're going to ruin it, Clive. You're going to screw it up.
So look,
There are a lot of questions, so let's make it short, please.
yeah. The Future Ohakune has looked at how Ohakune could grow, and it looked about where development could go, about whether it's by the high school, out by the Carrot Park. All that has been available, and I'm sure there's a few of you in this room who've taken part of those public meetings where we did consult about the future of Ohakune. That's what the important thing is. But look, this is becoming more of a two-way thing. I'd rather hear from others rather than me respond.
Okay, we said, okay, and introduce yourself,
I've got a statement first.
and you are,
I'm Colin,
yes, on.
it's anonymous. I hope.
Yep.
I'm speaking to you on behalf of myself, my family, my friends, my guests, my manahiri. We chose, and I concur with the gentleman over there, we chose to come and live and stay in Ohakune. Let me just put you right on a couple of things you've said, Clive.
Yep.
Pre-COVID 2019, there were a number of issues. Not only housing, tourism was a big issue. We have enjoyed Ohakune and everything that it has to bring. You've admitted yourself that your consultation has been lacking. My family and I only found out about this development on the 8th of June. And we have, similarly to the points being made over there, been trying to find out more. So thank you for tonight. But my question to you is, have you seriously considered stopping, pausing, reflecting, and actually consulting more with the community so that we can actually not go through this formal process and actually that you can actually have a consultation process instead? That's my question to you.
Okay, then we'll take one online. Thank you for that.
There was a question.
Sorry, but I've been told I'm talking too much, so I'm letting others.
He just asked you a question.
Yes, he did, and I was also being heckled to say that he had enough of me, so I was responding
Sure,
to.
the answer, that's what we're asking. That's why we're here.
Give us one answer.
Okay, I am who I am. I'll try and be authentic, so I apologise if it's not what you wish. As far as consulting goes, this started, as I said, about 3-4 years ago. What you're talking about is a specific location that we didn't consult early on. I totally accept we did not sit down with the neighbours of the Tate Drive and talk about the proposal. That we didn't do. What we did do is to say that we needed to do more in housing in our district. That was well consulted over the years. We also said we needed partners to do it, and this is the only opportunity we have now is with that money. If we say no to that, there will be no other discussion with anyone else, because we're not a developer and we do not have ratepayers' money to spend on houses. So the simple answer is
Represent the community, not define the law.
Yeah.
Just got a question.
Excuse me, I have a question for people here, not you guys. How many of you neighbors, fellow citizens, how many of you heard about this project, just like that gentleman here, just like myself, just a couple of months ago?
Yeah.
If you were answered that we were not consulted, we were not, we were told.
Your consultation based.
No, I've got someone online that's a question. I just want to be fair to them because there's heaps of people on there, obviously, and I just hands going up. I think it's
Sonia was
Fair enough.
Sonia, yeah.
Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Ko Sonia McFettridge Tokawingoa. I have had family links with Ohakune for a really long time. My grandfather taught at Ohakune High School. My father, now deceased, actually went to school in Ohakune High School. My aunties and uncles went to school in Ohakune High School. I chose to come and invest in Ohakune for everything that it gives: fresh air, safety, a fantastic opportunity to go up the mountain, to experience nature, and to actually get to know the locals and be part of a really good community. My children now come there. My children's friends now come there. They're all safe. We're in Snowmass Drive. They walk down to the Carrot Park. We've watched the evolution of the Carrot Park and we've supported that 150%. It's such a fantastic asset to the community. The Carrot is a national icon. It's part of our taonga. We've got to actually look after it and protect it. What's really concerning is some of these decisions that appear to have been made. Understand about 2019, from what I understand, the focus was on Taumarunui and the needs that were actually in there. And Ruapehu District Council have looked a little bit wider, and I understand the need to look in Ohakune. But we also have to look at, from what I understand, 5.2 million has already been spent as at March. That was in the public records that came through from government report. For 5.2 million, how much of that could we have spent to be able to house 10 or 20 families within Ohakune? Kāinga Ora has a current program all over the country where they refurbish current properties. So they could have actually invested and actually used that 5.2 million really effectively. You mentioned about low income housing. We already have sections on the market for 200,000 in Ohakune. I'm really struggling to understand what first home buyers would be expecting. I'm also really concerned about the whole development. Most of the area around Teite Drive has a lot of holiday homes. It encourages tourists. We see a lot of people cycling, skiing, walking, using all of the local amenities and facilities. We're not saying no to community housing. We're not saying no to public housing. We're just saying it's not the right place to actually do this. The propensity to actually have some really serious issues is really high, from roading to transport to redirecting walkways past roadways. It's not safe, it's not practical. So I'm actually just saying, I echo the gentleman in the corner saying, can you please reconsider this? This is not the right place. This is not the right way to actually consult. This is a really poor decision. And there's no amount of free money that can actually undo a really poor decision. This is not the right way to do it for Ohakune. Kia ora.
Yes, thank you, Sonia.
One of the, you will go to say, oh, sorry, I'm Joe. One of the odds that you'll go to stage 2, adding to the 100. So,
You want me to speak? I was going to say, there is absolutely no plans for.
there are
There is no finance funded plans to do any more than the 44. The money that's available is just those 44. The odds depends what the time frame. When we looked at Ohakune a few years ago, it was the biggest growing area in our district, right? With really rapid development. COVID came along and the sensitivity on the mountains sort of slowed that a bit. There's already about 200 lots in the sort of parcel, if you like, outside it that's ready to go in Ohakune for for different reasons. So regardless of what we do, you're going to have hundreds more houses being built in our community because it's a growing community. People love it. You expressed it yourself. What we're talking about tonight is 15 public houses amongst 1,000 people out there. So we need to look after all people's needs, not just those who can afford, the expensive houses, if you like.
My name's Amy. I'm all for public housing and making sure that our country has warm homes for our families to live in. My concern is, has the council and gone to the government and considered the effect of increasing our population? And I'm not talking about our public housing that you're going to offer. I'm talking about the other houses on our health system that we are already struggling with in this community.
And education.
It takes our community up to 3 to 4 weeks to get a doctor's appointment in Ngāti right now. You want to increase our population to a point where we are pulling at strings to try and get them what they need. It's not going to work unless you guys are working with the government to ask for the funds to increase what's available in this community in the health sector first. Yeah. You can't bring more people in here that we can't look after. Absolutely.
Do you mind if I answer that?
Yeah, sure.
So in conjunction with that, at the moment, the council are working with groups of people to develop the wellness centre in Ngāti Rangi. they have put money aside for that, and it's in the development stages at the moment.
So are we looking at more GPs, more general nurse
And
practitioners?
the idea is to create a wellness centre
Yeah.
around wellness, not just illness.
Okay.
So it'll be a health centre.
And is that plan to be done before the housing gets done?
That's been done into, and it's kind of as money's available, because at the moment, they've only given us $2 million to cater for two towns. Yeah. Yeah, that's the building, but the actual concept of wellness is going to be throughout the both centres. But they are thinking it, we're working on that committee at the moment, just as a voice on the committee, not steering it.
Yeah, that's good to know. Because that obviously, as health care providers, that's our biggest concern, is we're struggling at the moment already. And we're stretching ourselves, and if we've got to stretch ourselves even further.
It goes further than that, though,
Yeah.
because the infrastructure, for example, is going to be, you've got to take the infrastructure with you as well.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of money, the previous council spent millions of dollars upgrading our water, sewage, and stormwater is on its way to cope with the potential development that's going on in this area. Hundreds of developers have got hundreds of housing on the radar, and in a progressive way, we're going to actually have to meet that with our infrastructure, and we've done that. So one lot more online.
There's actually 3, so Sue Watts, Chris Fitzgerald, and then Marianne.
Well, that's one that had spoken before.
Remember now.
Hello, well, Mr. Watts. You hear us? Unmute the microphone. Unmute. No, we'll come back to him.
The organised can do it. Organised can unmute it,
Yeah. At the end, can we unmute?
Chris is ready to go.
Yeah, there we go.
We can only ask them to unmute, we do not have facilities.
Okay, we'll take one more from the floor. It's,
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Chris Tako Ingoa. I'm actually one of the neighbours that's directly impacted by this development. In fact, we're mentioned as one of the affected neighbours bordering the property. My statement is this. I would have hugely appreciated hearing about this meeting earlier from the council, and rather than an email at 10 a.m. this morning from Barry about letting me know about this meeting. So my apologies, I could not be there in person, and that's just because I've not had enough notice. I would, as a neighbour bordering the property, I would appreciate that the council takes the time to visit the immediate neighbours, be that in person or in the case of my living in Wellington via phone or Zoom conference, just to hear about our thoughts as immediate neighbours in that space. While I'm supportive of the idea to develop that area into residential housing, I do have concerns that might directly impact my own property in that case, and I'd like to express those, and I'd like a forum to do that. And I'd like to, and I'd like the council and Kāinga Ora to actually be proactive in that space, rather than the attitudes that I saw in the resource consent, which suggested a lack of appreciation for the landowners immediately in that facility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I just quickly say, we did actually try and contact the neighbours affected, and this, we already have had like Zoom meetings before with people to talk about it. So this is our kind of second opportunity. I apologise that you got missed out. That was certainly not our intention.
So the first one was I did actually get a letter from Kāinga Ora telling me, and then I've had no communication. So you have my address on file. But I've not received any letter correspondence or contact about this. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Got one in the front here.
Hi, I'm Richard Fleury. I'd just like to know that Clive inferred that the land was zoned residential.
Yep.
And I'd like to know how long has that been residential, and when it was changed?
2011, and our last district plan, I believe.
I Can I ask for 2 questions?
You've done plenty of developments around here, you've been tied up on. Would they be able to develop for less than $200,000 a site? I would struggle with where I'm from. I'm a builder, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not really too sure of the maths on that, but yeah, it's.
You'd be pushing it, wouldn't you?
Not really. No, you probably do.
Okay, we've got one, is that fair?
I'm cheeky, I've got a very technical question, sorry, but I did ask the lady from the councillors that about the title of the land and would there be any covenants on it?
One sentence.
And I think it would allay the gentleman up there about his property and what's going to detract from the value of his property. If there are covenants put on the land and they're very strictly adhered, that might allay some people's fear about it's not going to be a very good neighbourhood or it's going to look rough or whatever the fears are that people have. If you have a well covenanted well, I think that is because they're rough. If you have sort of dog kennels and trailers and trucks and people and there's no covenants, it could end up a ghetto. I'm sorry.
So council originally got to 7.2 million or something, and funding, I remember the exact figure, but 2.1, Peggy already said 2.1 million was spent on the lowest 3 to 6 units. That's 5 one-bedroom units and 1 two-bedroom unit.
Can we just clear this up, please? Yes. It's taken from me, you've stated the expected a couple of meetings, horribly inaccurate.
That can come to your own. That's
On the roadway. Yep, that's 1.4 million 700 is given the house.
Okay, that's
okay. So that's what I think. Yeah, that is the job figure. And the 2.1 was the whole thing. The 2.1 was applied for. They had money left over. This was the only job ever done in New Zealand that was on pipeline. The extra money that they were given, they did through refurbishing. 8 places got totally refurbished. And what healthy living standards.
So 1.4 million was that worth out 6 5 1-bedroom units.
As we work out to $418,000 a complex. It's recompensated.
Okay. And
so it's $4,000 a square meter. They were 100 square meters.
4,000 square meter.
Yep. And they were 8 star rooms.
So it doesn't add up.
So they had triple play with those shops. We didn't.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's take one online, please. That's for a question. Oh. Yes, please.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you. So I'm tapping into this meeting from Wanaka, which is a very similar community to Ohakune in a lot of ways, and that it's a tourist destination. It's driven by the ski industry and the tourist industry, and it's small and it's growing. And on the front page yesterday of the Wanaka Sun, which is the equivalent to the Ruapehu Bulletin, was a big article on a recent development that's been finished in Albert Town, similar to the one that's proposed for Tay Drive. So these houses have now been finished. I think there's about 40 of them, and they're designated as short-term residence, social housing and workers' accommodation, similar to what's proposed in Ohakune. And they haven't been built to meet the conditions of the environment here. So there's concerns that the internal temperature of these houses gets up to 40 degrees in the summertime when it's 20 degrees outside. So, and I'm assuming that this lack of resource consent, this lack of ability to go through consultation means that similar houses will be built in this environment, which, you know, put people off wanting to live there, don't meet the requirements that you're anticipating they will, and are just a bit of a white elephant, really. So I guess my concerns echo the concerns of everybody else's, that potentially this isn't the right place and it's not the right process, and it's going to create a massive headache, not just for the residents and the neighbours, but for the council in the future as well.
Thank you for that.
Bruce Robinson, I'm not a effective direct resident, but I am an Ohakune person, a market gardener. My concern, and I've visited 3 times since I heard about this development, which has only been in the last 6 weeks. I've visited the drive that is proposed to be the access on busy days. And I listened to the Zoom meeting where it was said that you had previously with so-called experts, or maybe the experts want to get out of the engineering offices with their little computers, go down there and see that more traffic on that drive on peak visitor days to that wonderful carrot park is not going to cause a death. Now that might sound a bit exaggerated, but who here has been down here on a busy day and with 40 more houses, times that by whatever amount of vehicles, times that by whatever amount of trips in and out per day, I think it got all that wrong. I listened to the engineer, it was totally wrong. I also heard on that Zoom call, the resource planner or someone, one of you, Clive, referred to the resource manager, that only engineering issues would be considered in the notified, if it is going to be notified consent, and not the social aspects associated with the community. He didn't say that. He said only the engineering issues. Well, the engineering issues, I don't believe, based on that drive. And if anyone begs to differ, as I say, go down, I'll video it next time I see it and post it. It is ridiculous. You've got kids going to run across there, all sorts of problems. So that's my big concern around the drive. Also, just listening here tonight, I mean, there's 85 people in this room, and I can't count out the door. Don't know how many online. But I think it'd be a great shame to go away and not have some sort of, I know it's not a formal meeting, that motion passed from the floor that directs community board members and councillors to, in better words of what was put up over here, to at least halt this process. Just because the government and Kaingaroa are holding a shotgun to your head and saying do it or we're dropping the money, that's no excuse. The money doesn't mean a thing. Our community means everything. So I think we need to
He has asked for a motion from the floor.
No, I'm not going to have a motion.
So what can I ask you, if you're not going to motion, because I can understand that, what is the council going to do? And when was your last biggest meeting of these numbers at a public meeting? Because if you're going to ignore us, I think you do. You need to reconsider it. If you're going to ignore this, then you've got real problems and you'll be thrown out as a mayor and elected members.
I think what we're going to do is give people an opportunity to have to say thank you for that, and then we'll summarise what we can do or can't do.
I'd like to respond. I really take issue with what you said about the value of the houses, and really the insinuation that you made that actually for us to have a holiday home here somehow neglects others. I'm 100% behind community housing. Everybody in New Zealand that lives in our country should have a warm, dry, healthy home. That is not the reason I'm here tonight. I'm here tonight because I don't think this really stacks up. It doesn't serve the needs of these people that really need this housing. You heard the figure that was mentioned before. That is true. We could have already solved the issues for the 12 families living in Ohakune that need the housing now.
Exactly.
You're not talking about a stage 1, 44 homes. You're talking about up to 157 properties in that dwelling, which will have ongoing impacts for future generations. That's the reason I'm here. I mentioned I'm here because of the community. What you've done through your lack of consultation has left a legacy of disruption and just confusion for my generations to come and future visitors to this place. It's actually disgraceful, your level of consultation of this. And I do ask you to stop, pause, reflect, take some time and get some community consultation going.
Okay, thank you. We've got that message. We've got one.
I'm arguing from River Drive. What I do not like about this project is not because I'm against any of public housing, as my friend said, or any of the good stuff that's coming from this project. What I'm angry about, and anger comes from trespassing the boundaries, my boundaries, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people here are angry because their boundaries have been trespassed. But what I'm angry about is the lack of transparency. We just found out about this. We were not consulted by this. And then we were telling, oh, you're not a local. Yeah, yes, we're not local. We live here sometimes, but we pay way more than we pay back at home for all the rate and all this stuff. So we're working with the community. We want to see this community thrive as it's been thriving throughout all these years. I'm part of this community as well as all of these people here, and we would love to see it thrive. But the way that you're doing it and the way that you're presenting it to us, it's not the way it should be. If I were you, I would put a stop to it and reconsider doing that and consulting the community.
Thank you. Got that message?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I'm Sheila Buck and I've lived here for 50 years. I'm married into a family that had lived here for 50 years before. I'm concerned, as Bruce says, with the access. You're coming over the bridge, coming out of Ohakune, there's no turn lane to go into that drive, and there isn't enough room for a turn lane. There's not room for coming out or going in. And I think it would be a ridiculous thing to have major traffic to a subdivision going down a narrow road with no turn lane, say Highway 49.
Absolutely.
Let's get this bit in front of us.
Yes, my name's Faye. I'd like to know, Buchanan, was it? If they agreed to a change in the access to that area, and there was an access that would meet both your needs, would you agree to the subdivision going ahead?
I haven't said I disagree.
But would you think it was more feasible if there was access to that property?
That's one of the things that needs to be.
And what would be the second?
I don't know.
But if there was better access to that drive, would that alleviate some of the problems and concerns that you have?
And that's part of the resource consent, there's a safety issue, and there it comes up.
And the point needs to be made about the walkway. It's not just the access. Do you realise that you're taking a walkway, rustic walkway, away that was given in good faith at the time, and you're running out there now along in front of 7 driveways and then across all the sections. We're taking on a walkway and putting it into a roadway. How does that stack up?
Okay, we've got one online and we've got one back there.
I just want to further comment around the walkways. We had a 10-year-old child from the village. She loves it. It's a safe walkway. That's going to be taken away as far as I'm concerned, and what I understand from the plans. How do you think it's reasonable to have a 10-year-old child or 2-year-old child walk past 9 or 7 driveways that people can back their cars out and think that that's okay? Where does it go?
It gets back to the driveway issue that we talked about as well.
But it could matter, because I don't want my child to die.
Yeah, sure.
Or him to come to my
What's online? Hand up.
So whoever what says.
Problems, is it? Should we take one more from the boards? Just got one gentleman at the back there.
What was previously as a request, I'm not putting it as a question. Will you stop this process? Will you, as a council, stop this process now and start consulting properly so we can have a decent debate about these issues, rather than us all finding it out within the last couple of months? Will you do that?
What I'll do is, Mayor, and I accept some of the responsibility of the.
No, not accepting
No,
responsibility.
you just let me finish it, unless you've got another.
Well, I have a question. Will you stop the process?
I'm just going to explain that question in that I have a responsibility to the other members on our council. We have 9 other members that need to be considered. And I need to go back and consider perhaps a special meeting, if not another forum where we can agree. It's got to be, by the way, public and Zoom. It's going to be of that nature, unless it's confidential, which I don't like myself, but nevertheless, it's up to the council. And I undertake to bring that to the attention of the councillors, and they are the ones that make it forward. I cannot, as a mayor, make the final decision unless it's a cast vote. So what I can tell you is that I'll treat it as a priority to look at a special meeting that deals with only a decision, and that'll be a public meeting. It'll be a meeting that allows the councillors to digest what has been said tonight, even though it's verbal. We'll get the message. It was designed tonight to allow you to have that say, and I'll be there as soon as possible, practical, executive, and the staff to make sure that it actually happens in due course. So we have the ability, or at least I have the ability, to put a special meeting to discuss this particular item and allow the councillors to have a free and practical discussion about that, and that's my role to do that.
I understand that. Second question.
Defining vote, would you
Will you not
vote
allow us to do
stop?
our hands up fold?
Ratepayers can allow them to make the votes.
No,
The vote, because you're.
no, it's elected members to make the decision. That's who you chose. Last year, to make it.
So we select.
No, where he.
They might be online. No, we are. It could be online.
The lady.
Sorry, can the councillors say how they feel about this? Can we hear from that?
Well, I think they're not all here.
That's right, the ones that are here, maybe.
Yeah, and I guess to put them on the spot.
So we're not going to know, we might have it.
To be fair, the process is, if we have a meeting, it'll be done with basically with some information that they need to digest in advance. So they're not going to be, unless they want to, that I advise them to actually hold on until we digest what has been said tonight, get some clarity as to what it means, and then make a decision.
You said we voted them in, and I'm sorry, I was like, here for them.
Yeah, well, it's up to them as to whether they want to speak, but you asked whether it's a council meeting. The reality is that we could have a special meeting, we could actually discuss it, and you'd be all welcome to tune in for that. No, sorry.
Hello. Hello.
As to these developments, how many applications has the council had for shovel-ready developments? I know of lots of people who put applications in for development. Speaking with Rabbit, he said Horizons are to blame why some of these developments haven't gone ahead. But these sort of developments affect local employment. Like I've been employed here for 34 years, 36 years. I've employed up to 33 staff at once. Now, I deal with all the local builders. I've got the engineering company in Crane Iron, and they're looking, some of these people are looking for work now. And it's about employing locals on local jobs.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to talk about project management. We just saw the expertise of Rowan with the project management of the council flats. Who's going to manage this? What expertise have you got to manage this project? Like, are the district council going to manage it? Are Ngāti Rangi going to manage it? Who's going to manage these projects and bring them in on time, bring them in on budget? Like, there is so much that you need to look at as a business person, and you know, we know how to do budgets, we know how to do pricings, and
You've left a lot of stones unturned.
Transparency.
And how much is a affordable house going to cost? Will it cost
The actual details of the houses has not been worked through. That's a next year plan. We haven't gone in on a resource concern. Subdivision, yes. But that is a.
How do you know it's affordable if you don't know how much it is?
The question is the affordability pricing for these houses. Now, whilst it is taxpayer money and they are carrying all the risk, the ratepayer is not carrying the risk on this actual building costs. Just bear that in mind. It's still the taxpayer, yes, but it's not a ratepayer consideration. So if there is a blowout,
We still pay for it.
Sure.
That's what one
With the house, that the cost lower.
yeah, sure. That's a Rowan.
I'd argue it would be cheaper to retrofit some of the houses you've got, or there are some that are actually ready now, really fit for purpose, that would be cheaper. I don't live in Palmerston North, it's not in the Rangi.
Sorry.
Yeah, as far as managing, the people who are putting up the money is Kangaroora. They are the developers, so they will be project managing.
Why are they fronting?
They've been here.
They've already had a meet. The last meeting was a Kangaroora meeting, and I was accused of not speaking because it was their meeting. We then decided we will have a meeting, a council meeting, so Kangaroora are not here.
Why are they not here?
Because they could have their meeting today, yesterday, and like this.
And so if the government changes in 2 months, what happens then?
Government.
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. No. No, I said it's not the change of government's not going to affect it.
You basically made a point about this before. That Kangaroora meeting that we all attended, that wasn't consultation.
No,
They told us that going ahead no matter what.
like you said, it's going ahead.
It's going no matter what.
Conversation.
No, I said
Big bang on, but it's eased up.
when I said this project is
Going
well
ahead.
advanced and is subject to resource consent. It's subject to the partners agreement. So far, the councillors are adamant that it's going ahead, but they're still out fronting this meeting tonight. It can still be changed, but at the moment, it's going ahead as planned because that's what the community said in consultation so far. But the documents.
How many councillors in total are there? Because we have three here now. We have 3 out of how many? So the majority are not here. They don't get this feeling. You cannot replicate this. And so that's my big concern.
It's been recorded. It's been recorded.
And how many will they watch it?
It might be on now, actually.
Yeah, just. So.
They all know.
Can we leave the lady that's been waiting?
Is there another one there?
Sorry.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay. Yours, yours.
Hello. Hello. Oh, hi. Hey, I'm Colleen, and we've owned a place down there for 18 to 20 years. We love Ohakune. It is our second home. It's not a holiday home for anyone else. We don't rent it. We're very passionate about Ohakune. We can't live there because there's no jobs. That's a big issue for these places. I'm very concerned about a few things. One is lack of consultation, and that Kangaroora seems to be a law unto themselves. And this is just one of the tick boxes type. We've consulted the community. I've seen these developments emerge close to whereby we live. They have completely tiny little roadways with insufficient parking. Now, nearly every place has 2 cars. There is not room to drive down these places, let alone they're talking about removing this little walkway and having driveways there. There's There's just not, every other council is actually creating walkways. That's an amazing place to walk down to the shops without having to go on the main road. My other concern is the entry and exit. It's already super busy, as somebody has touched on. With that bridge right there, it's completely unsafe. I feel unsafe going into Two Roa Drive because cars are zooming backwards and forwards. There's no pullover place, and that's even worse because of the bridge. And I guess there's no plans for Kaingaroa to cough up with a roundabout or safe entry or exit. Also in Ohakune, you know, it's not an expensive town. Our place has a whole RV of 400,000. There are affordable places, and there's probably 12 on the market that you could buy right now and put those families in. They could have been in there 2 years ago. My other big concern is, what are they saying about there'll be supervision with these houses? Are they paying somebody full-time to live there, to supervise wayward people? I don't get that. That indicates that they know that the people in there need supervising. Most people don't need supervising when you live in your general house. The Carrot Park, totally, completely amazing. The best park in New Zealand. We don't want it littered. We don't want undesirables. My area in the Bay of Plenty had Kaingaroa houses fronting onto the skate park that's right beside it. Tenants from these houses have taken over this skate park. It has lost its lovely community feel, and I fear that that can happen there. We don't need that many places all put together. Scatter them. The other thing is the health system. Now, I've tried to get emergency care for an asthmatic grandchild in the middle of the night. It is not there. The drive has to be to Taumarunui or Whanganui. These places should be put in those areas where there's already existing services for those people to access. Ohakune Ratahi, they cannot have any more drains on their services. We've been there long enough to know that they've actually declined over the last 20 years, not improved. These guys, also from my local experience, they've gone ahead and put houses in when our highway didn't go through. You can't even get safely out onto the main road in my area, and I know the same is going to happen there. They should not be allowed to be put in. Lack of consultation. I didn't know this has been happening since 2019. We had to seriously jump through hoops and keep our place very modest, in keeping with the national park area. This is going to be a monstrosity, probably 3 stories high. I haven't seen the plans, but completely out of place. I have no objection to putting the houses up. Put 12 up now. House those people. There's not jobs for all these other people anyway. I've had family that have worked on the mountain, and I've had family that have taught in the school, and we've lived in our places at various times over the year. But employment is very, very hard, and you can't actually say that the jobs are there. So seriously, it needs to be scaled down. It needs to be scaled down significantly. The walkway must not be tampered with. That is just a no-no. There's not even a proper footpath on the road into town from there, and you have to cross the road to get on the one on the other side of the road. It's dangerous. It does not danger come into it.
Can I get the chief executive just comment?
Could I make one comment? This development is not about bringing people into Ohakune. The families that you're talking about are already here. They live here,
12 of
but
them.
they're in conditions that they would like better. So what we're saying is we're going to provide 15, the social and public housing to enable them to live in a decent, affordable, a warm home. We're not talking about bringing in, issues. If the issues are there, they're already here. But there's a lot of people who just would like a home. And I think that's
right. But if you put 20 of those houses all together, it creates bigger issues. They're better to be dotted around the community, insignificant. It's the wrong place, and it's the wrong type of development. It's not what you do in the big cities. You guys are just walking all over the people of Ohakune. It's an amazing town, and you're not got any respect for the feel of the town.
Thank you for those comments.
I'm sorry, I just want to say that.
Hello, I am on.
Do you think people who need housing look like?
Hello, I'm online.
In 2023, with our diverse culture, we can't go picking and choosing if we can't afford to live in a house or not. Do you know how many people lost their jobs over the last 3 years because of COVID? Do you know how many people can't afford to live in their houses and have had them taken away by the banks because they can't afford the mortgages? Look at our community. We are talking about people who need dry, warm houses so that they can live healthier lives.
I don't think people are disagreeing.
I'm talking about what she just said. I'm sorry. I'm referring to what she just said. But
Just keep on to you now.
nobody's agreeing with that. It's easier to build a group of flats in one area than it is to go and buy scatter around the place. All right, we're trying to house our vulnerable people.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to say that since 2015, I've been working with Wakatari about lowering the speed limit and getting better access, and they tell me that they will not be coming back to me now till 2027.
Yep.
So good luck with that.
Really, one of the first things, if anybody dealt with Auckland, I suppose some that do, there's been lots of developments with 30, 40 houses built around Auckland. They're such rabbit warrens. There's cars everywhere. They can't even get their rubbish bins collected without, they've got the automatic rubbish bin machines. They're almost useless because you can't get to the rubbish bins because all the cars parked on the roads. And they're all over Auckland. So now they've got an extra guy running around with the rubbish bin trucks pulling all the rubbish bins out where they can get to them. But the density is the problem. The lack of car parking with the design is a terrible problem. People might be poor in New Zealand, but most of them still seem to somehow manage to own motor cars. I don't know, but they do because they're everywhere. They're all through these places and they're screwing up the edges of the development. It's shocking. If we build all these houses, it still sounds pretty expensive. I've been a builder and developer most of my life. And I built my own house down in Snowmass Drive. And recently I knocked down 3 houses in the fucking beach and built myself a retirement home and put 2 sections up for sale. They were houses that were passing use by date and didn't meet the modern standards. I can understand about that. But there's a lot of vacant sections, or not vacant sections, old houses dotted around Ohakune that really do need pushing over. You're already cutting the mustard on the owners of those guys. Well, those aren't you? They're never going to be able to push them over because you're going to bring all this extra competition in, government subsidised, government backed, and there are opportunities to get their houses pushed over and redeveloped and gone, whereas there you're on the perfect opportunity to get stuck in, buy up some of these sections and redevelop them. They're more shovel ready, they've already got the sewer pipe in, they've already got the water pipe in, they've already got the electricity in. You've got none of that down there. You haven't got them curb and channel. You've got an awful lot, you're a long way from shovel ready.
Thank you for that.
So, you go first.
My name's Fred Cole. And just talking about, ask a question about what the man was just saying. There are such houses down Station Road, very poor housing on the right-hand side. Quite big sections. I don't know who owns those, but they all need to go.
The old ADL corporation.
Yeah. You know, after they could be done with that.
Sure. Thank you for that.
There's only there's 2 really rough houses. The section itself, the section is quite big.
Could I remind, when we consulted on this a number of years ago about what we should do in housing, the message we got loud and clear was you did not want us to spend ratepayers' money on housing. So the option of us going and buying property or buying land or doing that we did ask if people wanted us to, and we were told, no, there shouldn't be ratepayers' money, work with agencies, other partners to do it. So that's what we've done.
That, but maybe go on the wrong way about it. It's kind of all good. Could be paying the same as what the money's paying over there.
That's consideration.
I'm making it tonight, we're out in the development and all in the wrong place.
Sure.
That's
the matter. Thank you, Barry.
So just going back to Clive, when you said stage 2 and 3 weren't planned. Stage 1, you taken some money, 5 months, something money, and was granted that to develop this site. No one's been told about it. You're just doing it. Money's available. I believe you're going to lose more than 5.4 million in value just in the area of your country. The other thing is, if someone just comes around and says, here's another 5.4 million, go develop stage 2 and 3. So you're not being very honest. Like, you're just waiting for the money to come in, but you're not actually caring about what the rate pay is like. That's just more of a statement.
Thank you. Anyone online, please?
Stephen and then Jason.
Okay, shall we start with Stephen then?
Jason's ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready if Stephen's not.
Yeah, I'm good, but after you, Jason.
Okay, I've just got a couple of questions that I wouldn't mind being answered by Clive or whoever else is from the council there. There's been a lot of talk about this funding initially being for Taumarunui. When did the change get made from Taumarunui to Ohakune?
So first of all, the initial application was for Ruapehu, the district. We knew we had to do something, but the criteria was spade ready. At the time, we thought we had a spade ready property in Taumarunui, so that was the first one that we went for. That turned out not to be spade ready, and Tate Drive and Moore Street were the only two that met the criteria. So when we looked at all the council properties, it ended up being narrowed down to them. But there is a need.
What was the date, Clive? I wanted to know when that happened.
I haven't got that in my head. It was a few years ago. Yeah.
What year? There's been a lot of talk around this subject, but no direct answers on it. What year was that?
There is a number of direct questions we've been asked. We are collecting that information to respond.
But you don't know that. You can't tell me you don't know that.
What I'm saying is it's not in my head if you asked me just now.
Oh my God, you're the CEO of the Ruapehu.
We've been requesting OIAs on this for quite some time and we still haven't got a response, just for your information, Jason.
Okay, so any other questions on the floor? There's one back there.
What would be the legal way for us, if you want to consult us, how to stop you? What would be the legal way? You ask me to stop.
Well, I think allow that to happen first, and then you can take whatever action you like, but we're going to have a special meeting.
You throw the houses after they're being built.
Put your hands under your arms, because you might want to throw things at me. If they took 2 words out of tonight's meeting, it'd be social housing. If that was taken out of this proposal, I would suggest that 60% of the people in this room would not be here. You would all say to me, I disagree with you, and I'm going to use another way of addressing this issue. If we take the social housing out of, and we have a policy discussion on that, and we have all the public meetings just to discuss social housing, I'm sure a majority of you might have come along. But if we took social housing out of the issue, I believe you would not have turned out.
Probably 95% of the people operate out that walkway. So I think
Social housing and walkway.
But now, when there is no transparency, I wonder what's going on. How can we trust the people we put there?
Yeah.
They're going like, you voted for us,
Now we're gonna do what we want to do.
Why are they asking for supervision of the workers' accommodation?
Yeah, well.
Why do you need that?
I'm not sure what the, I think it's.
That's what you said.
I think-
Clive said.
I just.
Oh, you did, sorry.
I think the question was the supervision for the work, related accommodation. My understanding is that because of the nature of, seasonal work, for example, people coming and going, so they'll be actually having, that lady on the, where was it, Monica? Talking about the same sort of scenario, a different mix of people that come in on a seasonal basis need accommodation. And so there needs to be some management apparently on those houses.
Sorry, Weston.
So you're gonna have these houses sitting empty for a period of time when there's no one here seasonally working?
I can't get into that detail. Sorry.
I put an OIA in and was told that there's no documentation, policies, rules, like there's.
That's my understanding.
Yes, so how can you go and say, well, be workers' accommodation when you have a family?
Well, that's part of the mix. We said that right from the
There's
get-go.
no single document on it.
Sorry, I think what you can't, just what we do, we're going to get criticised. If we had all the answers before we started, you would say we've done all these secret deals without consulting.
You have any secret?
Let's say this is that we would like to use money to develop the infrastructure. The actual houses on it will be a totally different process. Another thing next year on it, there's plenty more opportunities to talk about what goes on that side. What we've got in is a subdivision proposal going through while we work through the details. That's, we don't, the reason we don't know about the 14 affordable workers one is that we've had indications that there's a demand out there, so that's why it's in the, the bid. But how it's going to be done has got to be done in consultation with those people who are going to use it.
So why are you doing that? The workers' accommodation?
Because nobody else does it.
Yeah, the cities are actual towns are doing that.
Well, we've just been told it's already been done in New Zealand already. So I think it's
Ski towns all over the world do it. In fact, in America, a lot of ski towns are being mandated now if they're putting in infrastructure for their lifts, they have to provide housing for their staff.
So the ski, the mountains doing it.
And also helped into it by their local council, so there's funding to help people. This whole documentary about it.
I think that's going on. You could question about Clive actually. The significance policy you said wasn't triggered.
Yeah.
Does the councils, like I'm aware, a lot of councils have a value in their significant policy? And if it wasn't triggered, who determined it wasn't triggered?
Yeah.
So this is all around consultation.
Yeah. So first of all, there is no dollar trigger because we're not putting any dollars in, right? So
the land's worth nothing.
No, we've actually been, that's our local share that's been part of the deal.
Yeah, but that land has a value. And I'm sorry, you've probably broken significant policy.
No.
Well, who determined you hadn't? Had audit? New Zealand done that?
Well, they don't get involved in those.
They will at the end of the year. Look, no, truly, I can't believe such a significant. So what's that land parcel worth if I come to council and say I want to buy it? Don't tell them you're not going to sell it. I know that.
No, people did want to buy it a few years ago. They were prepared to, I think, to offer about $1 million for the whole area, not that part that was there.
So that was someone who offered you an amount.
They wanted to develop houses on that side.
So I know Horizon's significant policy is, well, when I was there, it was 350,000 and it triggers a significant policy.
Yeah.
You're talking $1 million, but that's only an offer. I would say that land's worth significantly more.
Just a small part
so
of it.
It seems to me that this has been ran through without proper thought around your significant policy. Who, I guess the question has got to be direct. Who determined the significant policy wasn't triggered?
Right. Can I first of all say that we're talking about one lot of undeveloped land that will be used by a developer who will then invest in it and turn it into 44. So all that council is disposing of or offering is one lot.
Subject to the consent too.
Yeah, it's a conditional subject to.
You understand all that, but still has a value.
That's a significant.
It's ratepayers land, and the significant policy is put in place deliberately by Audit New Zealand to stop these meetings.
Yeah. So can I just say something? It was an advice of land sold, it was discussed in the meeting in August last year. Horizons approached by some Europe, 3 small lots with 150 something thousand each. They put the option to possibly sell it to Pandora, but they still have the agenda items, still put all the information in, in their documents, and then went out and looked if they were going to sell it. Nothing, council never asked the public if they were happy to sell this. Your significance of engagement policy also states that this is going to hit the media, or it's going to slow down the workers, your response times, that sort of thing. It would be at scale number 5, and you guys are at the top of your scale on your significant policy right now.
We would disagree with that. Yeah.
Peggy.
Nicky Riley and Horizons Ruapehu Regional Council people here. And I was around the significance policy, and I do challenge you on that, Clive, that this is an asset of significance. This was the ASC zone for the Ohakune borough. And prior to 2019, I understand that you and our engineer were actually looking to solicit some improvement in the way of a hotel. So that site has gone from hotel site to social housing, next to a community asset that was funded by the community, from within the community, to actually create a national iconic park for our community, not just for our children or our visitors' children, which we share freely and willingly. And I acknowledge you, QSM holder, listen through, and your family, and all the other people in this room that has funded and sponsored all the bricks, and our names are all through that parkway, and actually throughout our entire region, from the Ohakune Old Coach Road, which is my project for 10 years, and a bunch of other projects for our community. Strong communities are built from within Clive. They're not railroaded. This is not what you do to the Ohakune community. This is unacceptable. We do have people in need, that is without a doubt. But I challenge you to actually work with the considered people of Ohakune to actually work forward for a pathway that is beneficial for all of the members of the community. And you take everyone with you. That is your challenge, and you have to go around the block a few more times. This is not the way to do it. This is not what this town is built on. This is not why all these people are here, and all these people on the screen. I challenge you here to do something with this. This is a passionate community, not unlike Wanaka. And we have teachers in the room, we have business owners, we have builders, landscapers, all sorts of people here. We have people that spend a lot of time giving their time and service to this community. They work hard, and they don't need to be challenged in the streets through ill thought out projects. You really do need to take this back and consider this, because this community has worked hard to rise up through eruption phases. We have recently gone through our 2 iwi, having recently been signing these settlement agreements, and there is pathway forwards to everybody. And it's pretty white and good. But 2 lots of people signed this treaty. We were a bicultural country when we were founded with this treaty document. And we need to step forward into that space together. And I heard a speech last week from our past Prime Minister who actually said that we need to work together as one, and we need to work through the issues. We need to consult together properly, not lip service, but properly. And to Ngāti Rangi, I challenge you to come and talk to the community, the rest of the community. We are one, whether we're pink, purple or polka dot spots covered, but we need to work through this together, or we are going to be divided, and that will be a tragedy with everything we've come through and everything we have to look forward to in the future.
Can I just make one comment? We're right at the beginning of the proposal. You're talking, you've made all the decisions, the things are out there. We haven't only started. As soon as we had a plan, we got approval that there would be money available, we started to consult. This is the beginning of a consultation process. That's why we don't have all the answers. But this is what we're doing. We've already said it will be a notified process from a resource point of view. We haven't decided on the houses that are going on there. That's a next year process.
You've got a trust issue.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that this is the beginning of the process.
As soon as you hear it for the first time, you react to it. That's natural. That's why you've got a fantastic showing tonight. But it's right at the beginning of the process.
Question.
At the start of the consultation. You did a very amazing and very fair thing at the start of this. You admitted that you had not properly consulted with the community that this will affect.
That's the point.
And congratulations. But you can't now say you're just starting the process. The process is underway. This is a council proposal. The council has got its shoulder wider right now. And you will go back into your council rooms, and some councillors are just going to say, oh, they're just a bunch of anti-social housing. We can ignore them. You can't ignore us. We're not like that. We believe in social housing, but we understand our community. And you haven't asked us, so you stop and ask us, so we will consult with you.
Well, let's thank you for that point of making, but just to say that we will be meeting and we will discuss the whole situation of consultation and the process, and we'll deal with it in due course.
Excuse me. I'm Rosetta and I've lived here most of my life, which as you can see is quite a few. I had one question. We keep on and on about the people in need, and I know because we've employed people for 50 years. So I know, yes, there are families that need homes. But you keep talking about when this is put in place. Not why. So why are we not talking to Raynor? I'm sorry if I've said that wrong. There are houses available here. You're saying we can't improve them. You can't double glaze them. You can't into flap or whatever you do. You can make them dry and healthy. That will house these people now. You're talking how many months down the track? Years. You've got to put your drainage, your water, your sewage. You've got to clear the land. You've got to put your curbing and channeling. So we're talking not 3 months. These houses won't be finished. 10 years. Yeah. So what happens to the families that are so desperately in need now? They carry on living in crowded conditions. Sure. That obviously is not your consideration when you're talking about that.
I think to just regurgitate what we talked about earlier, this is not a council-driven project as a council. We are partners with Taumarunui and others at Ngāti Rangi. And we are joining forces to address how can we consult the community and how we can resolve some of these outstanding issues with our community, as you just said. What we can do as partners, though, we can actually take on board what the community is saying. We can actually pause, I think the language is pause, and consult, as has been mentioned. That is my personal view. But we've got to respect the other elected members, who many of them are here today and might be online. They've got to have their say as well. And I think you've got to respect that. It's a formal democratic process that we're going to follow. I'll do my best to get that platform for it to be discussed in due course, and I'll raise the very issues that you're raising here tonight, and ensure the Deputy Mayor and the other two councillors will do also relay your concerns and what the process has resulted in so far. But this is a pretty typical thing that happens in any community, and we respect that. You're entitled to your view, we respect them. But I'll just make this comment in that this council and the previous council have done their best by looking at the information that I've seen so far as mayor. They've done their best to actually come out and, in general terms, address some of those issues around housing, at least acknowledge that there is a need. And so every part of this community has had an opportunity to actually put forward those messages and whether we should be involved, yes, no, and those sort of things. But now we're getting down to this detail. The fact that we've got money, we've got partners, and we've got what we thought appropriate land. If we're wrong on any one of those issues, then we've got to take that into consideration. We still have time to address those issues. I must point that out. It's up to the councillors to make that call. Whether they do, don't know. They will do their best to respect your views and others, because there's a lot of people here that would have liked to be here on both sides of the equation. But I think all of us share in this vision to make sure that all our people are at least have a warm home. And that is the important thing in the back of many of our minds, is that is what's driving us so far. If we've got it wrong in some aspect of it, then we've got to tweak it, so be it. We'll do that. But please give us space to do that. And we respect the fact that, you know, you've got to carry out your lives as well. But that's the best we can do. We'll get back to you with a result in a public meeting date when we can, and I can assure you it'll be in the foreseeable future.
Can I just ask one question? Well, are they all the individual houses going to be on freehold titles? Like, will they all be individually owned? Or and can be sold?
There'll be affordable homes that have
So, yeah,
Yeah.
no, at the moment, there will be 15 that will be owned by Kangaroo.
Yeah.
They'll be, you know, the rentals that
Yeah.
they do. 15 first-time buyers will transfer to those buyers, so they will own those properties.
On separate 15
Separate
titles.
15, so the 14 affordable workers.
Freehold, all freehold
Well, that's the bit.
or leasehold.
We've started to work through with employers how we want to do it. What we want to do is we don't want to give a person a gain in the market, buy a cheap one and then they can sell it for more money later on. So we need to protect that if we're creating affordable housing, it's there sustainably. That mechanism needs to be worked through the potential people.
But if it's leasehold, they won't be able to get a mortgage. It won't be harder to get a mortgage.
We haven't even got a resource consent for the site yet, so it's, you can't sit down and negotiate with someone when they haven't got anything to offer. This is right at the end of the process. You know, we have, the conditional offer is subject to a resource.
Right.
There's no resource.
Okay.
Thank you, James, Dr. Donny. When the area was zoned residential, were there any objections to it being a residential place then?
Not according to the documents I've got.
Yes, and that would be my question. If it's zoned residential and residents are going in there, or residences, then I can't see that that is any different.
It's just different ownership, isn't it, what you're saying?
Yeah, so what has happened is the council owned the land and us all as ratepayers. It became residential. You have decided to work with two partners, Ngāti Rangi and Kaingaroa, and you have chosen to put residences there. My concern in the room is maybe that the residents, Barry, aren't quite as high spec as we want them to be.
That's the space that.
Well, I don't think that's not the case at all.
Any residents would need access. That's already been approved, and that it's a residential area.
Well, it's yet already determined by the consent.
Ngāti Rangi was consulted from the beginning. Who was consulted on for the rest of
When you bought your section, okay, what was the zoning on that land? Oh, okay, so it's fine. That's the difference.
Please, I didn't finish.
So if they put a measure video.
Finish on I thank Pierre for suggesting that he's going to go away and have some consideration about this. I personally make a pledge to come back and talk about social housing in Ohakune. It is important for me that everybody that lives here is taken care of. I really care about this place. It is not about NIMBYism, what's over my boundary fence. That's not where I'm coming from. So please don't make this about a divisive issue when it's not. It's about how we best meet the needs of our community. And we need to work together as one. So let's do that. Yeah.
So if the council could bring the amount, or not council, your partnership, could bring the density of the houses down, so you've got 1 per 450 metres instead of 1 per 300, that seems to be what would make everyone in the room happy.
There's a few things.
And the access, and the access, yeah, and the access.
Parking on the street, there's no parking on the street.
Two more questions.
I think they. No, they're taking it down. Oh, which is not going to work.
They can't do that.
Two more questions and we'll tie it up.
Yes, would council consider talking to Kaingaora and Co about a redesign of the layout of the subdivision so that it was more in what we consider to be a better residential design and maybe reconsider the whole overall layout of that so that it was more what we kind of agree with.
More spacious.
Council members will be. Yes. I think that'll be in the mix.
Yeah.
One more question, please,
100%.
and then we'll tie it up. Right? Yes. That's voting here.
My name's Julia, and I want to say congratulations to all of you for coming, giving your time and expressing from your hearts what you feel about what's happening in our community. I think it's so important as we decentralise that we all stand up and speak and have our say and move forwards together as one. I know with council, sometimes with zonings, we're not always aware of what happens in the larger plan of things. So maybe that area needs to not be zoned residential. As a community, if we consult on it, we might decide that that area needs to stay open because it's relationship to the carrot part. I just think that moving forward from here, yes, the councillors will have their discussion, but it needs to come back to public consultation, and we all need to stay in this process of being actively involved in how we want to move forward from here and how we want to live in Awatuni or Ruapehu. So thank you all so much for coming and speaking and hearing enough.
Probably going to much now,
Kia ora koutou. I just wanted to stand as one of the representatives of Ngāti Rangi. I want to commend you for coming out to express your concerns. We have a saying, me kari o te no'o. We are not going anywhere. We are here for the rest of our life and the generations to come. We have a great need for housing for our people, and there are people in the community who also have a great need. There are 35 families from our data that need houses now. And while there are houses available in the community, they are way out of reach for our people. And so this opportunity is an opportunity for what we all deserve as a human right, good quality homes. There was a property that was mentioned earlier down on Old Station Road. 2 of my families live in those houses. One of them has recently had a stroke. Now, they don't have electricity at that house, and we can't get the accessibility to that house for his bathroom for 2 years because he's got to have an assessment done on that house by a therapist, and then they'll come in and make the changes. There are no other houses. Next to that house is his family. There are 12 who live in there in a 3-bedroom house. That's 3 families in that one house. My own family in Arawa Street, there are 9 people who live there. When I moved here to work in November 2021, I had to get a cabin on my mother's driveway because I couldn't find a house to rent. I could afford to rent, but I couldn't find a house. And we couldn't buy a house until we sold our house in Christchurch. So my family had to live down there until we were able to do that. And it was right at the height of those, everyone panicking because the interest rates were going up and no one was buying houses. So
Can I just say that if Kaingaroa really wanted to get your house, they would buy one of these existing old houses, knock it down, get transportable homes, drop them on there.
from what I'm saying,
And it'd be all done, and possibly as little
can you
as
let
3
me
months.
finish? Can I just finish? Can I just finish? What I'm saying is what I've heard tonight, we can go back and talk about it with the other partners. I'm not saying that I'm here to make the decision, but you have presented a number of ideas that we should think about. And I'm not saying we're throwing it out, but I'm saying we need to think about it, and we need to have a talk with RDC and also with Kaingaroa. It's important for us to do that. With regards to what you made, your comments, I don't really want to go down that track because our treaty claim is 2% of what it's actually worth. Yeah. Okay? And every other treaty claim in this country is the same. So to think that we are getting a great deal, we're not. You know, we got back the defence land and we gifted it back to the country for the good of the country. And we're working with them so that the personnel and NZTA understand those places that are of cultural significance to us. So I just wanted to let you know that we are open to discussion from a Ngāti Rangi perspective, and you know, I can't make the decision on behalf of the council, but I'm saying today that I've heard what you've had to say, but I'm not the one who makes the decisions. However, I will say, you know, I was born and bred here. I've been away from home, but only physically. This has always been my home, and this will always continue to be my home. And I love those of you who feel really passionate about that too. And I thank you for the contributions that you've made to making this home mine your home.
Well, finally, can we just conclude to say that thank you all for coming here tonight. Great turnout. Thank you for those who have come on Zoom. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for the robust and passionate questions. There are a lot of things that we'll be discussing in due course as a council. And I'm sure that we'll come to a compromise, if not a conclusion. Just taking on board some of the requests, I guess, from this forum, and I guess those online, is that you would like to see it pause. You'd like to see some consideration of the layout, if not some of the dynamics of it. But we all share, I'm sure you'll all agree, that we've got to resolve the issue of housing in Ohakune, and we've got to do it very quickly. I'm sure that every one of you agree with that at least. I just want to applaud you and be patient with whatever outcome comes. So we'll do our best as a council to address the urgent need, and also the political side of it. We'll address it in course, and we'll get back to you, and you'll share that information on Zoom. And we'll, I'm sure the outcome will be that we want to see you all here again to actually deal with some of the issues and recommendations. We may not get it right next time either, by the way, but at least we'll keep the dialogue going. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Just before you close, just so that you all know in the room that this is, Ngāti Rangi haven't fronted this, the council have fronted this. So just to be clear, that the iwi cop a lot of flack about, oh, they've been in backroom deals and that hasn't happened. This meeting happened tonight because we forced it to happen tonight. To ensure that we heard these voices out there tonight as well. This is not about campaigning. I mean, if I'm not here, I'm not here. It's about bringing it to the table, because we raised a lot of curly questions as well about things not knowing. This is the initial stages. This isn't it's not the done deal. We were concerned about the sizes and if it was for families, who would they play? It's not just your concern, it's our concern too. But just as Weston has said, there is a need. There is actually a real need. People cannot afford the houses. They've got two incomes, working and cannot afford the deposit, let alone the interest to go and get a house. Even 250,000. So then you're going to have to spend 60,000 up to code. Just so you know that we have heard you, just as Weston has pointed out. We will have an urgent meeting because the decision has to be made in that forum, and you will be notified publicly. Okay. Thank you.
Can you be careful of the technology there? You don't knock it over on the way out, please.